Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you my review of this week's episode of The Walking Dead on AMC, which is episode 4 of season 8 called Some Guy. And, I want to just apologize for the lateness, as I feel like I have to apologize for that a lot. But I'll say it briefly, just with work and juggling a good handful or two other shows. It's difficult sometimes, along with the ones I'm just watching in my free time. But of course, not going to miss a review of The Walking Dead. So yeah, Some Guy. I think it was a very good episode and probably the best of the season so far, at least for me. Although I've seen other people saying that too. I guess not just for me, but I still do think it was probably the best of the season so far. Season 8, all around for the most part, has been shaping up to be a pretty solid and pretty good season so far. I think it's off to a better start than what season 7 was. And what I like so much about I didn't hate season 7 either, the way some people do. I like season 7. I definitely had my issues with it, but still, I think season 8 is definitely a little bit more well put together. But yeah, Some Guy. I liked it so much because I don't know. I like that a lot of it was just focused on Ezekiel, as well as the others trying to survive. It was a more focused episode than some of them are, because, just centered around, like I said, Ezekiel trying to survive, and, Jerry and Carol getting mixed into it. It's centered around, like, one kind of conflict, especially when Carol and, Jerry and Ezekiel all come together. It didn't, cut away to another entire location, minus what Rick and Daryl were up to. So it devoted most of its time to focusing on Ezekiel. This is a very Ezekiel-heavy and Ezekiel-focused episode. And I like that. I think this episode helped make Ezekiel, level. It gave Ezekiel another level or two up as a character, I think. He was already, like a C+, or, maybe even like a B level character. But this one, I think, sort of solidifies him as one of the, central characters of the show at this point. And Khary Payton, or, I probably mispronounced his name, but the actor did a pretty solid job in this episode, I think. Of course, we see Ezekiel's just distraught after losing all those men, especially after knowing it's his, sort of facade that brought him together, his King Ezekiel persona, even though, he's just some guy, which that line comes right at the end of the episode, which we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But so, it's not just that he lost his men, which, is awful, of course, but it's that they willingly threw themselves on him for him, and he, feels a lot of, guilt and remorse over that, probably feeling like he didn't really deserve that. He didn't really deserve that kind of sacrifice from them, because, who he is kind of fake in a way. But Jerry has a line a little bit later when they're against the gate. That sort of makes me think that maybe some of them had more of an idea that, he was just bullshitting this whole time, but they decided to follow him anyway. Which would make sense. Jerry basically says something like, I don't know, he says, dude, and then it doesn't really matter, something like that. So yeah, I'm sure like Jerry and some others recognize that Ezekiel wasn't really King Ezekiel, but, they seen what they're doing and they needed something to get behind and something to give them hope too, and they thought Ezekiel was a good source for that, and so apparently Ezekiel still did truly succeed in some way with that. Although even what the guy, the savior is saying, with the glasses, saying it was set up for his own survival as well, basically, which is true too, but it still did more than I think Ezekiel realizes, and I hope he does think about that a little bit after this anyway. I probably didn't explain that the right way either, but he also had Carol, he's trying to track down the gun supply, which is fine, I've never been the biggest Carol fan, honestly. I've said it before. I've just never bought into her whole, Rambo mode type of thing, just because we never really seen her training or anything, and all of a sudden she's so, capable and everything. Although I do appreciate her development in the long run, from the way she was with Ed in the first season, to now, I do appreciate, how that happened, but as far as, her Rambo skills, that's a bit far. But, it's still fun. He had a couple decent shootouts with that. Of course, people complaining left and right about, the bullets not, piercing through the truck more and everything, but people bitch about anything they possibly can nowadays. Especially when it comes to something that's widely known and popular like The Walking Dead. It's easier for them to go after it because it's a cool thing to do, really. And I'm not saying The Walking Dead's flawless either, but people really just get at it more than ever. And then before we talk about the main part with Ezekiel and Shiva here, there is also Rick and Daryl's chase of the guy driving off with the truck, because Carol makes a choice. She can either kill the guys who could drive off with the supply or help Ezekiel and Jerry, and she chooses to help them, and thus they get away. But she sees Daryl and Rick going after him in the distance, so we get a little bit of a chase scene. Which we haven't really had a sequence like this before, like a vehicle, car chase or anything like that. So I found it to be pretty good. I mean, people can say, oh, that machine gun should have, just shot Rick down, in his little Jeep right away, and yeah, maybe. But, I still thought it was kind of cool. I like Rick getting up to the side, jumping in, and then, gutting the guy with a knife, and, crawling out, all casual, like with Daryl up there and everything. I still thought it was pretty cool, you just gotta... I like the show enough to suspend my disbelief for like little technical moments like that and everything. I think there's still enough good in the show to overlook things like that, Now, as far as Ezekiel and Shiva, Ezekiel, Jerry, and Carol managed to escape in the woods, but there's still quite a few walkers following them, as well as these pretty messed up looking walkers that have gotten into the swamp and everything. And they start surrounding them, and Shiva finally shows up, and I liked how she threw one from like over her own head and crashed into the barrels behind her. I'd like to think that Ezekiel talking about the way he sort of nursed her back to health before everything started happening, or before it went this far into the apocalypse. I'd like to think that Shiva sort of saw the situation, maybe saw there were too many walkers, but she still wanted to save Ezekiel's life, and that's what that was about. And people have also been complaining that she was 500 pounds or however heavy, and she should have been able to plow through those decomposing corpses or those decaying corpses a lot more easy than she did, instead of getting pinned down and devoured essentially. And yeah, that may be the case. Maybe a tiger should have been able to rip through things like that a little bit more easy and not be just pinned down like that. But I guess there were quite a few walkers, and there were ones coming from behind her as well, and they were pinning her down from different angles and everything. So I don't know. You could go back and forth about that quite a bit. I guess the tiger probably could have gotten out of that. Maybe they should have had Shiva slip through the middle of them and flee with Ezekiel and the others. But, again, I'm just going with the line of thinking that Shiva just self-sacrificed herself to ensure that they'd be distracted by her so Ezekiel could get away. That's what I go with, and I don't know, I still thought this was a pretty effective scene. So again, I'm able to look over, certain technical parts of it. Maybe you guys are right about the tiger, should have been able to survive there. But, I don't know, I still liked it, I still thought I was still affected. I did hear about Shiva being killed in this episode before, unfortunately, and this scene is almost a moment ripped right out of the comic books, at least with the Shiva specific part of it. But still, my body was tense. I did not like seeing that. It's not quite as graphic as some of the other deaths have been, though. I mean, the horse in season 1, of course. It's not even that far as that goes, as far as the gore, and we don't really see Shiva torn apart or anything. We see one walkers are picking up some kind of part in this, with blood on him and everything, but we don't really see much of it, so it's not too much. Overall, I still thought it was a pretty effective and engaging episode, though. I think it really solidified Ezekiel as a really good mainstay character on the show. And I'm giving the episode about 9.2 or 9.3 out of 10. So, Season 8's really kicking it up a notch here. And I'm looking forward to that Negan-centric episode next week, so I'll catch you guys for that and whatever else. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, like, subscribe, and peace.